Welcome. This is the second video for Biology 2210 lab for the spinal nerve, the week of the spinal nerves. As I mentioned in my previous video, this is going to be a pretty short video because we don't have too many models that are very good for the spinal nerves. We really only have this one plaque, and even this plaque has some issues with it, but we'll do the best we can in terms of pointing out structure. So what we have is a entire diagram or model of the nervous system, and we're going to start up in the neck with the first plexus that we talked about, which is the cervical plexus. Again, notice a plexus is a fusion and branching of nerves coming out of the cervical region. The only nerve that we're supposed to be able to recognize on this particular plexus is this one right here, number 17. That's the phrenic nerve. Again, that's the one that's going to go down and serve the diaphragm. The next plexus down is the brachial plexus, again consisting mostly of cervical nerves, but with a single thoracic nerve. And after the fusion and branching pattern, we get three cords that come out of the brachial plexus. As we know, the outermost one is the lateral cord. Inside here, most medial, of course, is the medial cord, and then in between and behind is the posterior cord. And remember, each of these cords gives rise to particular nerves. So if we focus on the posterior cord, remember it gives rise to a small axillary nerve, which stays up in the armpit region. And then the rest of it is this nerve right here, which passes behind the medial cord and comes down the back of the arm as the radial nerve. So that's the posterior cord with its axillary nerve and radial nerve. The other two cords, remember, part of them at least fuse together in this V pattern to create the median nerve. So the V is a very useful landmark for identifying the median nerve. But recall also that the two cords also give rise to their own nerves. The lateral cord, of course, gives rise to a musculocutaneous nerve, and the medial cord gives rise to an ulnar nerve. And so some students like to, instead of just focusing on the V, again, they like to look for an M pattern. And here we see that M pattern. The ulnar nerve comes up, then down to the median nerve, back up to the lateral cord, and then musculocutaneous nerve. So if you visualize that M, that might help you remember these nerves. When we get to the thoracic region of the spinal cord, remember the thoracic nerves tend not to form plexuses, so we see they all stay as individual nerves traveling to and from the spinal cord. So the next plexus we see down lower is the lumbar plexus. This is all the lumbar plexus involving the lumbar nerves. And again, a variety of nerves coming out of the lumbar plexus. The one that we are supposed to be able to identify is this largest one right here. This is the femoral nerve. And note very specifically how the femoral nerve passes in front of the hip and comes down to the front of the thigh, the front of the leg. That's going to help distinguish it from the sciatic nerve, which we'll talk about next, which goes behind the hip. So the larger nerve that comes down the front, that's the femoral nerve. All right, and then finally we have a sacral plexus, and on this particular model they don't do a very good job of showing the plexus. It looks like the nerves are just individually coming off the spinal cord or the cauda equina. But what we can see is this very large nerve, the largest nerve in the body, which is the sciatic nerve, which, unlike the femoral nerve, passes behind the hip instead of in front and comes down the back of the leg, serving essentially the hamstrings. Once we get down around the knee area, remember it splits. If you take a look at the orientation of this leg, notice this foot is pointing out. So right here represents the posterior leg, the calf, basically. And so that part of the sciatic that remains posterior is referred to as the tibial nerve. The tibial nerve. The part that, and we only see a short bit of it here, the part that branches off and goes to the side, which is underneath here, and the front would be the common fibular nerve or the common peroneal nerve. So the sciatic at this point is splitting into its two main branches, the tibial, which remains posterior on the calf, and the common peroneal. Okay, so that's really all we have in terms of models for this week. Next week we're going to start the brain, and as I mentioned, we're going to probably split the brain up into 2 videos, just because it's such a large topic. But until then, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.